A little while back, we put an asterisk on potential all-time NBA GOATs. In this video, we're going to take that similar concept, but apply it to more recent NBA players. And GOAT in this context might not mean greatest of all time, but greatest of this era, which still phonetically sounds out as GOAT. And just as a reminder, this is for the sake of argument. These positions can be argued for or against, just as it was for the all-time GOAT video that we made a while back. Without further ado, let's have a dice roll for our first option, and what do you know, we got snake eyes, which means we're starting with the Slim Reaper, Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant is not the greatest of this era, though I feel kinda bad starting with KD. As tall as Durant is, this is actually low-hanging fruit. The poor guy's best achievement was playing with only the greatest regular season team to ever exist. Not only that, he was playing with the greatest shooter of all time, in his prime a unanimous MVP, and to play under an elite coach who won 5 rings as a player. Worst of all, this may not even be Durant's best achievement, just his most infamous/famous one. In these finals, he defeated 2 depleted Cavs teams and then ended up losing to the Raptors, though KD did get injured there. And to be fair to Durant, just the fact that he was able to recover from his Achilles injury and continue to play at a high level is remarkable and legendary, so hats off to him for that. But he's still not the GOAT of this era. His rings are very hollow. His finals MVPs may as well be Summer League MVPs. But no one wants to hear about his time with the Warriors. It's kind of a dead horse. What about his time with the Thunder? Yeah, remember when Kevin Durant had 2 other future MVPs on the same roster and still got bounced in the finals in 5 games? Do you also remember when he choked a 3-1 lead in the playoffs to the Warriors? What about his tenure with the Nets and Suns? So far, crickets. What has he done for the Suns and Nets? Nothing but net has a new meaning because KD did nothing with the Nets and the Suns is still in play. What's not still in play is Mr. Load Management, Kawhi Leonard. Now, Leonard is a man with 2 rings and 2 finals MVPs, just like Kevin Durant, and he even beat Kevin Durant's team in the finals back in 2019, so surely he should be the GOAT of this era. However, if we take a look at that 2014 NBA Finals, Leonard did not lead the Spurs in scoring, Tony Parker did. He did not lead the team in rebounding, Tim Duncan did. He did not lead the team in assists, Boris Diaw did. And he did not lead the team in steals, Danny Green did. Leonard mainly won that first Finals MVP for narrative purposes, as he was the main man guarding LeBron James. So what did Mr. LeBron Stopper do? Leonard held LeBron to a lowly 28.2 points per game on 57% shooting. Poor LeBron was only able to just nearly drop 30 points a night on 60% thanks to the so-called great defense of Kawhi Leonard. And of course, I'm being a bit contrarian here and hyperbolic. I'm not saying Leonard is a bad defender, I'm just saying think critically about that 2014 Finals. As for his 2019 ring, sure, making it to the finals by joining a team that was literally first in the East last year must have been such a huge challenge to join a veteran playoff team, and when he finally got to said finals, his opponent on paper was the mighty Golden State Warriors, a fearsome foe, but in reality, we had a gassed out Warriors who just went to 4 straight finals, and then this 2019 series is their 5th finals in a row. So how impressive is it to beat a team with Kevin Durant mostly out missing 5 games, and then even Klay Thompson eventually got injured? Fast forward to his time with the Clippers, and what we got so far from Kawhi in Hollywood was a man who sat on the bench quite a bit and had short, disappointing playoff runs. Keep in mind he had high caliber names alongside him like Paul George. Alongside him as in sitting next to him on the bench, right? But I know what you guys are probably thinking. Our first 2 players, you can argue, probably don't belong in this era and are 1 generation behind. So let's move on to some of the newer gen guys like Luka Dončić. They say numbers don't lie. Luka's stats are one of a kind. But if we bring up numbers, then we have to tell the whole story. First and foremost, Luka's stats are so valuable, you must ask yourself, how does this team do without him? Thanks to Sports Mediocre for gathering these numbers, in Luka's career, his team is plus 1.2 with him off of the court. In 63 regular season games in which Luka missed, the Mavericks won by 0.2 points per game. That is a positive stat line without him. In the 3 playoff games he missed, they went 2-1 and won by 2.7 points per game. Remember the heroics of Jalen Brunson without Luka? In Luka's first 5 seasons, his team had a positive rating with him off the court 4 times. To put that into perspective, in LeBron's 20 seasons, that has only happened once, and in 12 full Steph Curry seasons, that has only happened twice. So with all the super teams that Steph and LeBron have so-called been a part of, Luka's teams still had more positive ratings than Steph and LeBron's teams combined when each of these teams missed out on their best player. Again, you could say that it's not fair to compare Luka to an older generation. What about Giannis, Jokić, and Embiid? Well, all three come from teams that desperately need them. The 76ers have a negative 1.9 rating without Embiid, the Nuggets are a staggering negative 4.4, and the Bucks are a negative 2.2. To be fair to Luka, he has plenty of time to prove himself. His deepest playoff run was getting bounced in 5 by the Warriors in the Western Conference Finals back in 2022. Maybe the future for Luka and the Mavericks can change if he wins a ring. And speaking of that 2022 playoff run, Steph Curry ended up beating Jayson Tatum of the Boston Celtics, who is also not the GOAT of this era. Jayson Tatum, the 4-time All-Star who is the best scorer in the league today. Wait, that's wrong. Jayson Tatum, the best shooter in the league today. Nope, that's still wrong. The best defender. No. Rebounder? No. Passer? What is Jayson Tatum the best at right now in the NBA? The answer is nothing, but that doesn't mean he's not a bad player. What if he's the best jack of all trades in the NBA? That might be the case, but it's a big what if. Now, you can make a respectable argument for it, but first you need to convince me that he's the best player on his own team. The Jaylen Brown versus Jayson Tatum on surface may not seem like much, but when you really delve into it, this tandem is not like any other conventional duo. For example, Jokić and Murray duo, it's clear who's the 1-2 in that combo. Luka and Kyrie, Embiid and Maxey, so on and so forth. Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum? That's not Batman and Robin. That's like Batman and Superman. Who's really better here? And if the answer is Jayson Tatum, which it might be, how much better is the next question you have to ask yourself. Jaylen Brown's $303.7 million extension with the Celtics is the largest contract in NBA history. That's not an accident nor a coincidence. Now, that's not to say when Jayson is up to renew his deal that he will break that record. Sure, Tatum probably is better than Brown, but the fact that it's very close is very telling, which means when the Celtics do good and win, I think it's fair to not give Jayson the lion's share of credit in the same way one would give Giannis or Nikola Jokić. And speaking of those two, it's time to get to the crux of this video. Surely one of these two must be the GOAT of this era, and while technically somebody has to be the GOAT here, here's the best counter argument for each player. Both players so far have 2 MVPs, a Finals MVP, and are in a great position to get more rings as their careers go on. The biggest hurdle in Giannis' GOAT case is the fact that he's a terrible shooter, not a mediocre shooter, but an actual bad shooter. From free throw shooting, mid-range shooting, and three-point shooting. He's been getting worse at the free throw line. He used to shoot around 77%, but in recent seasons has downgraded to around 64%. If he keeps this trend up, we are getting close to hack-a-Shaq levels of bad. As for three-point shooting, while 20 years ago, no one would expect a player like Giannis to even think about throwing the ball from beyond the arc. But to be the greatest of this era, when other elite power forward and centers are doing so well beyond the arc and in deep mid-range, this excuse is not so valid for this decade. He is currently shooting around 24% from the three-point line. Charles Barkley has the worst career three-point percentage when attempting more than 1,000 plus threes at 26.6%. If Giannis keeps up his abysmal three-point shooting, he has an opportunity to break Barkley's terrible record. I'm not saying he's going to do it or he's on track to do it, but if he keeps up doing horribly, he could do it. As for his mid-range, he shoots a below average 37%. For comparison, Nikola Jokić shoots 50% from the mid-range. So yes, Giannis is a bad shooter, but he's a really good athlete who can score on the inside and can protect the rim. But here's an interesting stat. In the last 3 seasons, Nikola Jokić had a better defensive rating in 2 of them. I'm not saying Nikola's a better defender than Giannis, because career-wise, of course, that's a different story. And speaking of Nikola, Jokić is a tough one. He's truly a unicorn, but unicorns are not binacorns, and thus unicorns are not goats. They're completely different animals. There are holes in Nikola's game. He is a subpar rim protector, as he never averaged over 1 block per game ever in his career. He makes up for it by being a good rebounder. He's sluggish in transition, so if there is a fast break or a turnover at hand, don't expect Nikola to ever make an ESPN top 10 highlight for a chase down block. Maybe it could happen, but don't expect it to happen. As for his accomplishments, his MVPs and stats are nothing to scoff at. His ring, it's fair to question. While it's not his fault that his finals opponent was one of the biggest underdogs in NBA history, that still doesn't take away the fact that every player mentioned in this video that has made it to the finals had a tougher finals opponent, win or lose. including Jayson Tatum, and including Giannis Antetokounmpo, who did beat that Suns team who choked their 2-0 lead. And on paper, you could argue that Nikola Jokić has the least amount of help compared to everyone previously listed, because on paper, none of his teammates ever made the All-Star game, but the metrics will tell you that players like Jamal Murray are of All-Star caliber, and it's very likely that in the near future, more Nuggets players will make All-Star rosters. Now, when we're talking Nikola, when we're talking Giannis, there's always one other guy that ends up in this conversation, and that is Joel Embiid. And to be completely honest, I was kind of debating on whether or not I should even include Joel Embiid in this video, because if you thought Golden State Warriors Kevin Durant was beating a dead horse, talking about the fact that Joel Embiid has never made it past the second round in the playoffs is an even bigger dead horse, but I do think we got to at least mention it. So far, throughout all of NBA history, Joel Embiid is the only MVP to never make it past the second round of the playoffs. Now, that stat is kind of unfair because he's not retired yet. I do believe in the future he can break that, and thus this segment is just an asterisk. In fact, this whole video is an asterisk. The narrative can easily change in the future for all players listed, as many of these players are heavy favorites to make the finals and win rings in the future. So who's the GOAT of this era? Well, like all GOAT debates, the answer is, well, Michael Jordan. Okay, yeah, I'm dodging the question because that's pretty much how all GOAT debates end, by dodging the question. You can make an argument for or against each player in the video. Psst, it's Nikola Jokić though. Okay, I'm Rebound Rewind and I'll fast forward to you later.